So coming back to the term ICS and cyber physical systems, I think the other common question that many people would ask is, what is the threat landscape looking like, right, when it comes to cyber physical systems? And
Sure.
then many of us talk about Stuxnet, 2010, and Ukraine,
Yes.
blackouts. And so tell us about the current threat landscape. And because I'm just thinking, right, the research reports that I read for this year, so they talk about, for example, pipe dream, right? But it was sort of caught in some sense before
in development. Yep.
Yeah, right. So it seems like even though the threat actors are getting more sophisticated, our cyber defenses are getting a lot more sophisticated as well.
Of course. Yep.
So your thoughts?
Yes, it's not all bad news. There's the bad news component is we're starting to see movement from untargeted malware that just made its way into critical infrastructure because of poor segmentation many, many years ago. We've now kind of improved that capability with additional segmentation and perimeter defense and detection. Then you've started to see adversaries with a defined interest in industrial control systems.
Right.
So that could have been many years ago from a data collection so that they could go build similar plants without the necessary research and investment, just kind of intellectual property theft. And then it has started to move into process manipulation. So the obtaining of data, you'd referenced Stuxnet, and looking towards some of the Ukraine 2015 attacks and the Havex Dragonfly campaigns, information collection so targeted attacks could come back. The three that have moved into a misuse world where we look to Ukraine 2016, and we see the intentional disruption of the protection system so they could cause equipment failure on the circuit breakers and substation gear. Then in the Trisis attacks going after safety instrumented systems, which that would only be for the purpose of causing human loss of life or equipment damage. And now with Pipe Dream, again, moving into this modular malware framework
right.
where it's a force multiplier for an adversary group. Everybody doesn't need to know the environment. They can kind of piece together different modules to achieve a goal.
Right.
So you saw...
It's like Lego, building a Lego.
Yes, correct.
Right.
So some of the different modules that they allow for initial access with Dust Tunnel, that module, that really helps them with a command control channel, similar to Ukraine 2015 with Black Energy 3. And then as you move into, once in that environment and they want to pivot into the next level, looking towards Mousehole as the ability to move through a data historian, and then the ability to load whatever content they need with lazy cargo so they can load unsigned drivers, and then it allows them to attack multiple different types of control system platforms running Omron or Schneider with two different modules, Evil Scholar and Bad Omen. So if you look at that whole set, that can be used in multiple sectors where those devices are found, or some of those modules can be used based on what the adversary is trying to achieve. That same capability set, if that was available to the adversary during Colonial Pipeline, for example, that would have allowed for easy movement between the different levels and direct manipulation. So as we kind of look backwards on a number of attacks that happened that were declared as criminal or ransomware, using modular malware like this, it could have easily moved into more misuse of systems or damage.
Right, yeah, I was going to ask you about ransomware and wiperware because I think the incidents that we've heard so far really kind of stop before it go into the other operational technology engineering environment, right?
Yes, and I think that's very important now. So some of the attacks that have happened around the world, not just in U.S., but in U.S., if you look at the JBS attacks against kind of food and agriculture production, you look towards Colonial Pipeline, and we were okay then declaring them as criminal ransomware types of attacks, looking for other nations to have policies and methods to go prevent them. Now, post February 23rd, post the Ukraine war, I think even those same types of attacks now would get a different level of response or a different level of care if the same exact attack occurred now, because of fog of war and kind of which countries sponsored the attackers, whether they were nation state or just the fact that they allowed it to occur from within their country outward.
So are you saying that our cyber defenses or mitigation measures will, to a huge extent, depends on our attribution to which,
attribution is very difficult. Country to country and throughout history, you know, kind of after 9/11 attacks, we declared war on terrorism, which isn't necessarily against any particular country, or it's a way of thinking. In a similar way, when you look towards these ransomware attacks and trying to find out where the adversary was coming from. And if they are hopping through multiple countries that don't work well together and won't share data and won't share logs, it becomes a very difficult thing to do with complete accuracy.
Right, okay. And of course, it becomes difficult to deploy the law enforcement capabilities
sure.
as well across jurisdictions.
And from a asset owner operator, most of that stuff isn't what you spend your day worrying about. The who and the why. You spend your day worrying about what did they achieve and how do you continue to ensure safe, reliable operations. There's different parts of this where intelligence and governments, and they're focused on the who's and the whys. The asset owners and operators are focusing
Right.
on how do we continue to operate through an attack.